Salam sejahtera tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Today we're gonna build a 2,500 ringgit PC and see whether it's actually worth the money because we have an expert today with us, founder and CEO of EMARQUE, Kiri. Can you walk us through expectations and what sort of parts we'll be picking for this PC?
So for this 2,500 ringgit build, we'll be focusing more on the gaming performance at great value. So you want to get as much FPS and performance that you can get to get you started gaming.
So with that, let's go with part number 1. Which part should we start with for this PC build?
Okay, so to hold everything together, we have the motherboard. The motherboard, we've gone with the Asus Prime A520MK because we're going to go with the AMD build. So the AM4 socket is what this A520MK can hold. It has decent features, but it's not too expensive, you know, because you want to make sure there's enough budget for the rest of the parts. So the motherboard has 2 RAM slots, 1 M.2 slot, and of course a full PCIe X16 lane, and as well as 4 SATA ports. So it's a decent featured motherboard. It's a good starter, but of course the reason why we do this is because you want to have as much budget as possible for your graphics card.
You said there was only one M.2 slot, correct?
Yeah, only one M.2 slot, NVMe M.2 slot. You can only get 2 NVMe M.2 slots with more expensive motherboards. 4 SATA slots are still there in case you want to have an extra SSD. You know, you can bring over a 500 GB SATA SSD or a existing hard drive.
Now let's move on to our next part. So what should be our second part that we should be focusing on?
We have the Ryzen 5 5500. I mean, it's the entry-level CPU, and the reason why we do this is so that there's enough budget for the graphics card. It's a decent performance to price ratio, you know, compared to the Intel counterpart. The 5500, an AM4 processor, still holds up very well with 6 cores and 12 threads.
What's the closest Intel counterpart for this, and how much more are people looking to spend if they were to go for that?
So the Intel Core i5-12400F is about 200 ringgit extra.
Alright.
It has decent performance. You'd rather spend that price for a better graphics card.
And that's the CPU. And now for part number 3. Alright, so what should be the next part that we should be focusing on?
So now we have the graphics card. We've gone with a GeForce RTX 5060. So the GeForce RTX 5060 is the current generation of 50 series graphics card. A very good entry-level GPU with 8GB GDDR7.
Alright.
So the comparison of the 5060, if you were to use previous cards, it's the performance of a 3070.
I see.
You know, so rather than getting a used 3070, a modern generation card is actually right now more worth it to get rather than a used card. The 8GB GDDR7, and at the same time, there's the Blackwell chip.
Yep.
So the Blackwell chip, you have multi-frame generation, you have DLSS, you have all the latest features which you need in AAA games. So you might not need the multi-frame generation for esports titles like Valorant and whatnot at this price range. But if you want to try out AAA games in the future, let's say Battlefield 6, you want to try out Call of Duty, you know, the 5060s can still run it good at 1080p, but if you're running on a 144Hz monitor or a 240Hz monitor, you need that multi-frame gen.
So some people might actually be interested in 5060, but they want to know of their options, roughly around the same price range. Do you have any alternatives in mind?
Yeah, sure. We have the AMD Radeon 9060 XT, but here we would recommend to go for the 16GB version because unlike the 5060 only has 8GB VRAM and there's only one variant for it. But the 16GB version is only at about 100 to 150 ringgit extra. Okay. And you have that 16GB VRAM. The VRAM is very important because in 2025 and 2026, we're looking at more game titles that are actually using more VRAM, especially when the maps and the levels are getting more heavier, and there's a lot of things that are happening on those levels and playing fields.
Indeed, it does.
Monster Hunter Wilds, and of course next year we might have GTA 6.
Yes.
You want to see a lot of draw distance. If you have the slight extra budget, I would really recommend the RX 9060 XT 16GB. It's in between 5060 and 5060 Ti. And
that's the graphics card. And on to the next one. So what do we have for part number 4?
So we have the SSD. The SSD is 256GB. It's a good starter. You know, you still want that NVMe performance and speed, but at the same time, at this price range, you just want to get started. You know, play lighter games like esports titles like Valorant and whatnot. But if you go to more AAA games, those can take up to half of this 256GB SSD. But at this price range, you want to get as much performance per dollar. You know, so 256GB SSD is what we're going with, the NVMe M.2.
How big of a difference in performance would someone get from this over standard hard drive.
The problem is like a hard drive is only up to 150 MB per second read,
Yes.
right? But NVMe M.2 like this one, this exact model is about 2000 to 3000 read-write speed. So you can imagine it's almost 20x, especially when Windows 10, a lot more users are no longer using Windows 10. You know, Windows 11, you need that read-write speed, especially when there's more updates, there's more features coming up, especially in terms of AI and Copilot and things like that.
And that's the storage, or the SSD in this case. Next up, what do we have for part number 5?
So this is a decent performance RAM. This is a Battle AX 16GB DDR4, 3200 mAh. Decent performance. It's still DDR4 because at this price range, if you were to go for DDR5, you need to go for a more expensive motherboard, you know, and therefore it would beat the whole purpose of it being 2.5K already at this point. It might be 3.2K. So this is a very good starter still. I think DDR4 is still very relevant in 2025, especially in lower end builds, you know, and 16GB is much needed. You can't run on 8GB anymore.
Does this RAM have RGB?
No.
Unfortunate.
No, unfortunately, yeah. I think at this price range, all you want to focus on is definitely the performance.
That is the RAM. Now we're moving to the final parts of the PC build. So Kiri, what do we have left?
So this is a 650 watt plus 80 power supply. More than sufficient because I think others might be using a 550 watt at this range. We put a 650 watt here. So you can even upgrade to a higher end graphics card in the future. So let's say this is sufficient for until a 5060 Ti. The casing is a GameMax Storm 2 MB. So this has 3 ARGB fans. So decent enough cooling. Then again, this build, because it's a budget build, we're using a stock cooler. At the front, we have 3 ARGB intake fans and we have 1 exhaust fan at the back. So these 3 ARGB intake fans is sufficient for airflow, intake airflow, so that there's decent enough cooling with the stock cooler. There's 1 fan to exhaust the heat out of the PC.
And that's the case and the power supply. And there you have it, everything you need for a 2,500 ringgit PC build. I personally didn't think it was possible, but thanks to the help of our expert for today, we managed to make it a reality. Now Kiri, would you like to say anything to our viewers watching this video right now?
Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Do check out our website at EMARQUE.co or contact us if you need anything.
Alright, now keep in mind this is only part 1 out of 3 because we're going to make 2 more episodes after this, with the next one being a 6,000 ringgit PC build. Now be sure to like, follow and subscribe to us at Price Shop, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye!